Lydia Daniels opened her eyes to unfamiliar silk sheets that felt like water against her skin. Her head pounded with a rhythm that matched her racing heart. The room spun slightly as she tried to sit up, and that's when she saw it. A platinum band on her left ring finger, gleaming in the morning light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Korean characters were engraved on the inside. She didn't own this ring. She'd never seen it before in her life. Panic seized her chest as she looked around the bedroom. Everything screamed wealth and luxury, from the minimalist furniture to the artwork on the walls that probably cost more than her Atlanta apartment. This wasn't her hotel room. This wasn't anywhere she recognized. Her last clear memory was arriving in Seoul 3 days ago for a financial conference, drinks with colleagues at some upscale club in Gangnam, and then nothing. Just fragments. Flashes of lights. A face she couldn't quite place. The taste of something bitter in her drink. Lydia threw off the covers and realized she was wearing an expensive silk robe in deep crimson, hanbok style, with delicate embroidery. Not hers either. Her hands trembled as she stood, her legs unsteady. She needed to find her phone, her passport, her clothes. She needed to get out of here. The bedroom door opened into a hallway that seemed to stretch forever, lined with dark wood panels and more expensive art. And men. 3 of them, dressed in identical black suits, standing at attention. When they saw her, they bowed in unison. "Good morning, ma'am," one said in accented English. "Mrs. Kong," another added with a slight nod. "Mrs. Kong?" The words hit her like ice water. Lydia's mouth went dry. "I think there's been a mistake." "I'm not. Your husband is in his study." The first man interrupted gently. "Would you like us to take you to him?" "Husband." The word echoed in her skull. This couldn't be real. This had to be some elaborate kidnapping scheme or a hallucination from whatever they'd put in her drink. But the ring on her finger felt solid and real, and these men weren't acting like kidnappers. They were acting like employees. Like she belonged here. Before you find out what happens next, if you're already hooked by Lydia's nightmare, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think is going on. Subscribe because this story is about to get wild, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Lydia followed the men because she didn't know what else to do. They led her through the penthouse, and she caught glimpses of Seoul's skyline through massive windows. They were high up, probably in one of those luxury buildings in Gangnam or Hanamdong, where only the ultra-wealthy lived. Her mind raced through possibilities. Trafficking? Ransom? Some kind of elaborate scam? The men stopped at a set of double doors. One of them knocked twice, then pushed them open. "Mrs. Kong to see you, sir." The study was all dark wood and leather, bookshelves lining the walls, a massive desk dominating the center of the room. And behind that desk, in a wheelchair, sat one of the most striking men Lydia had ever seen. He looked to be in his early 30s, with sharp features and jet black hair pushed back from his face. A scar ran along his jawline, thin and precise, like someone had drawn it with a razor. He was reviewing documents, his long fingers moving across the pages with casual authority. When he looked up, his eyes were dark and unreadable. "Lydia, you're awake. Please sit." His English was perfect, barely accented. Lydia didn't sit. She planted her feet and crossed her arms over her chest, trying to look braver than she felt. "Who the hell are you? And why am I wearing a wedding ring?" The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, not quite a smile. "My name is Kang Jae-hyun, and you're wearing that ring because 3 nights ago, you agreed to marry me." "That's insane. I would never." "You were drugged," he continued, his voice calm and matter-of-fact. "At Club Octagon. Do you remember being there?" Lydia's breath caught. She did remember. Vaguely. The music had been loud, the lights strobing. Her colleague Marcus had bought a round of shots to celebrate closing their audit. Everything after that was fragments and shadows. Jae-hyun reached into a drawer and pulled out a folder. He slid it across the desk toward her. "Your marriage certificate. Legal, binding, and witnessed. You can verify it with any official you like." Lydia's hands shook as she opened the folder. There it was. Official stamps, signatures, her name next to his in both English and Korean. The date was 2 nights ago. She stared at her own signature, and though it looked shaky, it was unmistakably hers. "This can't be legal. I was drugged. I couldn't consent to." "You were drugged by members of the Yamaguchi-gumi," Jae-hyun said, and the casual way he said it made her blood run cold. "The Yakuza's trafficking arm operating in Seoul. You were their target, Miss Daniels. Or should I say, Mrs. Kong." The room tilted. Lydia grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself. "Why would the Yakuza target me? I'm nobody. I'm just a financial analyst from Atlanta." "You're a financial analyst who audited Chun Holdings 3 months ago." Jae-hyun's eyes never left her face. "Chun Holdings is a shell company for Yamaguchi money laundering operations. Your audit flagged irregularities that cost them $40 million when the deal fell through. They don't forgive that kind of loss. Lydia's mind reeled back to that audit. It had been routine, or so she'd thought. Some discrepancies in the books, transfers that didn't add up. She'd done her job and filed her report. She'd had no idea she was poking a hornet's nest of organized crime. So you're saying they were going to? She couldn't finish the sentence. Traffic you. Sell you. Make an example of you. Jae-hyun's voice remained steady, almost clinical. My men intercepted you before they could get you out of the club. But by then, you'd been marked. They knew your face, your name, your hotel. You weren't safe. So you married me? Lydia's voice rose. That's your solution? You couldn't just put me on a plane back to the States. They have reach in America too. And a plane would have been too easy to intercept. He leaned back in his wheelchair, studying her. The marriage was your idea, actually. Bullshit. Jae-hyun pulled out a tablet and tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. Security footage. Grainy but clear enough. Lydia watched herself sitting in what looked like a private room, her eyes unfocused but open. Jae-hyun sat across from her, no wheelchair visible in the frame. He was talking, his mouth moving, and then her own voice came through the speakers. How do I make them stop? Her voice on the recording sounded slurred but desperate. You become untouchable, Jae-hyun's voice replied. You marry into a family they won't dare cross. Your family? Yes. A long pause on the video. Then Lydia watched herself nod slowly, reaching for a pen. I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to die. The video ended. Lydia stared at the blank screen, her reflection looking back at her like a stranger. She remembered none of this. Not 1 second. But she couldn't deny what she'd just seen. You took advantage of me, she whispered. I was drugged and terrified, and you manipulated me into. I saved your life. Jae-hyun's voice cut through her accusation like a blade. The Yamaguchi-gumi had already paid for you. $50,000 to 3 men who specialize in making women disappear. I could have let that happen. I could have walked away. But I didn't. Why? Lydia's voice cracked. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. For the first time, something flickered in Jae-hyun's expression. Something she couldn't quite read. I have my reasons. What matters now is that you're alive. And as long as you wear that ring, you'll stay that way. Lydia looked down at the platinum band. It felt like a shackle. So what happens now? I'm just supposed to play house with you? Pretend to be your loving wife. For 6 months, yes. Jae-hyun folded his hands in his lap. After that, the heat will die down. I'll arrange for your safe return to the United States with a new identity, if necessary. You'll get an annulment, your freedom, and your life back. 6 months. The words felt impossible. Half a year in a foreign country, married to a stranger in a wheelchair who apparently had enough power to stand up to the Yakuza. And if I refuse? If I just go to the American embassy right now? Then you'll be dead within 48 hours. His voice held no emotion, just certainty. The Yamaguchi-gumi has people everywhere, including in your embassy. The moment you step outside my protection, you're fair game. Is that what you want? Lydia's legs finally gave out, and she sank into the chair across from his desk. This couldn't be her life. For days ago, she'd been boarding a plane, excited about her first international business trip. She'd texted her best friend Tasha about trying Korean barbecue and visiting the palaces. Now she was trapped in a penthouse, married to a man she didn't know, hunted by the Japanese Mafia. What exactly do you do, Mr. Kong? She asked quietly. What kind of business are you in that makes you powerful enough to protect me from the Yakuza? Jae-hyun's smile was thin and humorless. The kind where questions like that can get you killed. But since you're my wife now, I suppose you deserve some honesty. My family controls import-export, real estate, and certain protection services throughout Seoul. We've been in this business for 3 generations. You're Mafia. It wasn't a question. We prefer to think of ourselves as businessmen with traditional values. Same thing. Lydia rubbed her temples. The headache was getting worse. So I went from being targeted by one crime family to being married into another. That's just perfect. The difference is that my family won't sell you or kill you. As long as you play your part. Jae-hyun's eyes hardened. There will be public appearances, dinners, events. You'll need to learn basic Korean, understand our customs, and present yourself as my wife. My enemies will test you. They'll try to find weaknesses. You can't give them any. Your enemies. Lydia laughed, but there was no humor in it. How many of those do you have? Enough. He wheeled himself slightly back from the desk. The wheelchair makes some of them bold. They think I'm weak, that my organization is vulnerable. Your presence as my wife sends a message. Stability. Strength. The Kong family is solid enough that I can afford to marry for love rather than alliance. But we're not in love. We don't even know each other. They don't need to know that. Jae-hyun's voice was firm. To the outside world, we're a love match. Unexpected, perhaps, given our different backgrounds. But real. Can you do that, Lydia? Can you sell that story? She wanted to say no, wanted to scream and demand to be released and find some way out of this nightmare. But the video kept replaying in her mind. Her own voice, desperate and afraid, agreeing to this arrangement. And underneath the fear, a cold calculation was forming. If what he said was true, she had no other options. Going home meant dying. Running meant dying. The only path forward was through. 6 months, she said finally. And then you let me go? No strings, no threats, no following me back to Atlanta. You have my word. The word of a criminal. Lydia met his eyes. Forgive me if that doesn't inspire confidence. Then you'll have to learn to trust me. Jae-hyun pressed a button on his desk, and the door opened. A young Korean woman entered, pretty and professional in a crisp white blouse and black skirt. This is Hannah. She'll be your personal assistant and help you adjust to your new life. Anything you need, ask her. Hannah bowed deeply. It's an honor to serve you, Mrs. Kong. The title made Lydia's skin crawl, but she forced a nod. Thank you. Hannah will show you to your quarters and help you get settled. We have a public appearance tomorrow night. A charity gala. You'll need appropriate clothing and some basic coaching on how to navigate these events. Jae-hyun returned his attention to the documents on his desk, effectively dismissing her. I suggest you rest. You've had a traumatic few days. Lydia stood, her body moving on autopilot. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. Why me? Of all the women in Seoul, why did you choose to save me specifically? Jae-hyun didn't look up from his papers. I told you. I have my reasons. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting today. He made a notation on one of the documents. Welcome to the family, Lydia. The dismissal was clear. Lydia followed Hannah out of the study, her mind churning. Nothing about this made sense. A powerful crime boss doesn't just randomly save a foreign woman from trafficking. There had to be more to the story, angles she wasn't seeing yet. But she was too exhausted and overwhelmed to figure it out right now. Hannah led her through more hallways to a different wing of the penthouse. These are your private rooms, ma'am. Master Kong thought you'd prefer your own space. The suite was bigger than Lydia's entire apartment back home. A bedroom with a king-sized bed, a sitting area with a view of Seoul, a bathroom with a soaking tub that could fit 3 people, and a walk-in closet already filled with clothes in her size. How did he know my size? Lydia asked, running her hand over a silk blouse. Hannah smiled. Master Kong is very thorough. He had your measurements taken while you were sleeping. I hope that's not too intrusive. Too intrusive didn't even begin to cover it. But Lydia was past the point of outrage. It's fine. Thank you, Hannah. There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry, and the intercom system connects to every room. Press 9 to reach me, 7 for Master Kang's study, and 0 for security. Hannah gestured to a panel by the door. Is there anything you need right now? My phone. My passport. My actual belongings. They're all in the safe in your closet. Master Kong wanted you to know that you're free to contact anyone you wish, but he asks that you don't reveal your current location or situation. For your safety and theirs. Of course. Can't have her friends and family knowing she'd been forced into a marriage with a Korean crime lord. Understood. After Hannah left, Lydia found the safe exactly where she'd said it would be, hidden behind a panel of designer dresses. Her phone, passport, wallet, and the small carry-on she'd brought to Seoul were all there, untouched. She grabbed her phone and saw dozens of missed calls and texts. Her boss, her mother, Tasha, Marcus from the conference, all increasingly frantic. She scrolled to Tasha's messages. The most recent one read, "Girl, if you don't call me in the next hour, I'm calling the State Department." Lydia hit the call button. Tasha answered on the first ring. Lydia Danielle Daniels, where the hell have you been? I've been losing my mind. I'm okay, T. I'm sorry. My phone died, and I've been dealing with some unexpected stuff. Unexpected stuff? You were supposed to check in 2 days ago. Your mom is freaking out. I'm freaking out. What's going on? Lydia closed her eyes, choosing her words carefully. I met someone. It happened really fast, and I've been kind of caught up in it. I'm safe, I promise. A pause. Then Tasha's voice dropped an octave. You met someone? In Seoul? Lydia, you've been there less than a week. I know how it sounds. It sounds insane. Who is this person? And why couldn't you answer your phone for 2 days? His name is Jae-hyun. He's Korean, obviously, and we've just been spending a lot of time together. I'm staying at his place. The lies tasted bitter on her tongue, but what was she supposed to say? That she'd been drugged, nearly trafficked, and forced into a marriage with a mafia boss? Tasha would lose her mind. His place. Tasha's skepticism was palpable. Lydia, this is not like you. You don't just shack up with random men in foreign countries. What's really going on? Nothing. I just needed a break from reality for a bit. The conference was intense, and Jae-hyun showed me that Seoul has more to offer than corporate presentations. Another pause, longer this time. Are you in trouble? Because if you are, if someone is making you say these things, you can tell me. I'll get help. The concern in Tasha's voice almost broke her. I'm not in trouble. I promise. I'll explain everything when I get back, okay? But right now I just need you to trust me. When are you coming back? Your return flight is in 3 days. Lydia's stomach dropped. She hadn't even thought about her job, her life, everything she'd left behind in Atlanta. I'm going to extend my trip. Maybe a few weeks. I have vacation days saved up. A few weeks? Lydia, please, just trust me on this. Tell my mom I'm fine, and I'll call her soon. I have to go. She hung up before Tasha could argue further and immediately felt guilty. But what choice did she have? The truth would only put Tasha in danger. And besides, who would even believe her? She barely believed it herself. Lydia spent the rest of the day in her suite, trying to process everything. She took a long bath, letting the hot water ease the tension in her muscles. She ate the food Hannah brought, forcing herself to swallow even though her appetite had vanished. And she stared out the window at Seoul stretching below her, a city that had transformed from exciting opportunity to gilded cage in a matter of days. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, there was a knock at her door. Lydia opened it to find a rail of evening gowns being wheeled in by 2 staff members, with Hannah supervising. For tomorrow night's gala, Hannah explained. Master Kong asked that you choose whichever one you prefer. The stylist will be here in the morning to do your hair and makeup. Lydia ran her hand over the gowns. They were all gorgeous, clearly expensive, in colors ranging from deep emerald to midnight blue to champagne gold. This is too much. In Master Kang's world, appearance is everything. You need to look the part. Hannah pulled out a sleek black number with a high slit. This one would be stunning on you. I don't even know how to act at these things. I've never been to a gala before. I'll teach you. Hannah's smile was kind. The rules are simpler than you think. Smile, stay close to Master Kong. Let him lead the conversations. If someone asks you a personal question, deflect with grace. And never, ever show fear. That last one might be difficult, Lydia muttered. You'll do fine, ma'am. Master Kong wouldn't have chosen you if he didn't think you could handle this. There it was again. That suggestion that her presence here was somehow planned, calculated, more than just a random act of mercy. Hannah, can I ask you something? Of course. How long have you worked for Jaehyun? 5 years. Since I was 22. And in that time, has he ever done anything like this before? Married someone suddenly, I mean. Hannah's expression became carefully neutral. Master Kong has never been married before, no? You're the first. But why? Why me specifically? That's a question only he can answer, ma'am. And Master Kong doesn't share his reasons unless he chooses to. Hannah checked her watch. It's getting late. You should rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. After Hannah left, Lydia tried on the black dress. It fit perfectly, hugging her curves and making her look like someone she didn't recognize. Someone sophisticated and dangerous. Someone who could stand beside a man like Kang Jae-hyun and look like she belonged there. She stared at herself in the mirror, this stranger wearing her face, and wondered who she was becoming. The next morning arrived too quickly. The stylist Hannah had mentioned turned out to be 3 people, a hairstylist, makeup artist, and fashion coordinator who descended on Lydia's suite like a well-organized army. They spoke rapid Korean amongst themselves, occasionally pausing to ask her preferences, but mostly just worked with the efficiency of people who knew exactly what they were doing. 2 hours later, Lydia looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Her natural hair had been styled in an elegant updo with a few curls framing her face. Her makeup was dramatic but tasteful, emphasizing her eyes and the fullness of her lips. The black dress fit like it had been made for her body specifically, and the heels added 3 inches to her height. Beautiful, the makeup artist said in accented English. Master Kong will be very pleased. The phrasing made Lydia uncomfortable, like she was property being presented for inspection, but she forced a smile. Thank you. Hannah appeared in the doorway, elegant in a simple navy dress. The car is ready. Master Kong is waiting in the foyer. Lydia's heart rate kicked up. She'd avoided seeing Jae-hyun since yesterday's confrontation in his study, retreating into her suite like a hermit. But there was no avoiding him now. She took a deep breath, steadied herself on the unfamiliar heels, and followed Hannah out. Jae-hyun was in the penthouse's entrance hall, his wheelchair positioned near the elevator. He wore a tailored black suit that probably cost more than Lydia made in a month, his hair perfectly styled, that scar on his jaw somehow, making him more striking rather than less. When he saw her, something flickered in his expression. Appreciation, maybe, or calculation. You look acceptable, he said, which Lydia suspected was high praise coming from him. Thanks, I think. The rules for tonight are simple. Stay by my side. Smile when appropriate. If anyone asks about our relationship, we met at an art gallery 3 months ago, and it was love at first sight. I courted you properly. You agreed to relocate to Seoul, and we married quietly last week. Love at first sight, Lydia repeated flatly. Nobody's going to believe that. They'll believe what we tell them to believe. The key is consistency. He gestured toward the elevator. Shall we? The ride down was silent and tense. Lydia kept stealing glances at Jae-hyun, trying to reconcile the man in the wheelchair with the power he apparently wielded. He sat with perfect posture, his hands relaxed on the armrests, looking completely at ease. Meanwhile, her palms were sweating and her stomach was doing gymnastics. A black Mercedes sedan waited at the curb, with 2 additional black SUVs behind it. Security, Lydia realized. This wasn't just a night out. This was an operation. One of Jae-hyun's men helped transfer him from the wheelchair into the back seat of the Mercedes, then folded the chair and put it in the trunk. Lydia slid in beside him, hyper-aware of the small space between them. The door closed with a solid thunk, sealing them in leather-scented silence. You're nervous, Jae-hyun observed as the car pulled away from the curb. Of course I'm nervous. I'm about to walk into a room full of criminals and pretend to be madly in love with a man I met yesterday. 2 days ago, technically, and not all of them are criminals. Some are legitimate businessmen, politicians, socialites. The lines blur in Seoul's upper circles. Comforting. Lydia watched the city slide past the tinted windows. What happens if I mess up? If I say the wrong thing or don't play my part well enough? Then people will start asking questions. Questions lead to vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities lead to attacks. He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather. But you won't mess up. You seem very confident about that. I am. You're intelligent, adaptable, and you have strong survival instincts. You wouldn't have made it this far otherwise. Jae-hyun turned to look at her directly. Do you know what I see when I look at you, Lydia? A problem you created for yourself? A slight smile. A woman who audited a billion-dollar corporation and found discrepancies no one else caught. A woman who built a career in finance despite coming from nothing. A woman who, when faced with impossible circumstances, chooses to fight rather than break. That's not weakness. That's strength. The compliment caught her off guard. You've been researching me. Extensively. I know you grew up in Atlanta, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs. I know you put yourself through Georgia State on scholarships and student loans. I know you've been sending money home every month to help your mother retire. I know your favorite food is her peach cobbler. Your favorite movie is The Color Purple. And you have a scar on your left ankle from falling off your bike when you were 7. Lydia's blood ran cold. That's stalking. That's due diligence. I don't make investments without knowing exactly what I'm getting. I'm not an investment. I'm a person. You're both. His eyes held hers. And right now, you're the most important person in my organization. My wife. My partner. The future of the Kong family. People will be watching you tonight, Lydia. Judging. Testing. Some will want to befriend you to get closer to me. Others will want to destroy you to hurt me. You need to be ready for both. The weight of it pressed down on her chest. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. Because the alternative is death, and you're too stubborn to die. He reached over and took her hand, his fingers warm against hers. The touch was unexpected, almost gentle. I won't let anything happen to you tonight. That's a promise. Before she could respond, the car pulled up to a massive building in Gangnam, all glass and steel and modern architecture. A red carpet led to the entrance, flanked by photographers and reporters. Lydia's stomach lurched. There are cameras? Always. Smile and stay close. Jae-hyun's tone shifted, became warmer, more intimate, like he was actually speaking to a beloved wife. We're in love, remember? The door opened. Jae-hyun's assistant had the wheelchair ready, and the transfer happened smoothly. Then he extended his hand to Lydia. She took it, stepping out into a barrage of camera flashes. Questions in Korean erupted from the reporters. Lydia couldn't understand any of them, but she kept her smile fixed and her hand in Jae-hyun's as they moved toward the entrance. He answered a few questions, his voice smooth and charming, and she heard her name mentioned several times. Mrs. Kong, his wife. Inside, the gala was exactly as overwhelming as she'd feared. Crystal chandeliers, men in expensive suits, women dripping in diamonds and designer gowns. Everyone turned to look as they entered, conversations pausing mid-sentence. Lydia felt like a specimen under a microscope. Jae-hyun, a middle-aged man approached, arms spread wide, speaking in rapid Korean. He had silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Jae-hyun responded in Korean, then switched to English. Uncle Sung, I'd like you to meet my wife, Lydia. Lydia, this is Sung Min-ho, my father's oldest friend and advisor to our family. Uncle Sung's gaze raked over Lydia with barely concealed disdain. Your wife? Yes. We were all very surprised to hear about this sudden marriage. Love doesn't follow a schedule, Jae-hyun said smoothly. When you know, you know. Indeed. And what does your wife do, Jae-hyun? Besides look decorative. The insult was thinly veiled. Lydia felt her smile tighten, but before she could respond, Jae-hyun's hand squeezed hers gently. A warning. Lydia is a financial analyst, one of the best in her field. She's already provided valuable insights into our overseas investments. He looked at her with what appeared to be genuine affection, beauty and brains. I'm a lucky man. How wonderful. Uncle Sung's tone suggested it was anything but. I hope she understands the complexities of our family business. I'm a quick learner, Lydia said, keeping her voice sweet. And I'm looking forward to understanding all aspects of my new family. Uncle Sung's eyes narrowed slightly, like he was reassessing her. Then he bowed curtly and walked away. That went well, Lydia muttered once he was out of earshot. Uncle Sung doesn't approve of you. Don't take it personally. He wouldn't approve of anyone I married who wasn't pre-selected by him. Jae-hyun guided them toward the bar. He'll come around or he won't. Either way, his opinion doesn't matter. He seems to think it does. He's a relic from my father's generation, useful for his connections and experience, but ultimately expendable. The casual way Jae-hyun discussed disposing of people should have terrified her. Instead, it was oddly reassuring. At least he was honest about what he was. They spent the next hour circulating through the gala. Jae-hyun introduced her to dozens of people whose names and faces immediately blurred together. Politicians, business owners, society wives who looked at her with curiosity and poorly concealed judgment. Lydia played her part, smiling and nodding and keeping her answers vague when asked direct questions. But she noticed things. The way some men looked at Jae-hyun with barely concealed contempt. The whispered conversations that stopped when they approached. The woman in the red dress who watched them with calculating eyes. This world was a minefield, every interaction laden with hidden meaning and potential danger. You're doing well, Jae-hyun murmured during a lull. Better than I expected. Low bar, Lydia said, then noticed someone approaching. A man, younger than most of the crowd, maybe late 30s, with a predatory smile and expensive watch that caught the light. Jae-hyun, what a surprise to see you out and about. The man's Korean accented English was crisp and educated. And with such lovely company, Jae-hyun's entire demeanor shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by ice. Park Tae-min, I didn't realize you'd be attending tonight. The organizers extended a last-minute invitation. I couldn't refuse. Park's gaze slid to Lydia, lingering in a way that made her skin crawl. You must be the new Mrs. Kong. The whole city is talking about you. All good things, I hope, Lydia said, though she knew that wasn't true. Of course, it's not every day that Kong Jae-hyun surprises us with a secret wedding. Especially to someone so exotic. The word exotic dripped with condescension. Tell me, how did you two meet? At an art gallery. Lydia recited the lie they'd prepared. 3 months ago. An art gallery. How romantic. Park's smile widened. And you fell in love just like that? Enough to uproot your entire life and move to Seoul. When it's right, you know it's right. Fascinating. Because I would have thought Jae-hyun had other priorities right now. Business has been so challenging lately, hasn't it? With the troubles at the port and those unfortunate accidents with your shipments. Park just threatened Lydia to her face, and Jae-hyun's enemies are circling. Can she survive her first real test in the Korean underworld? Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to tell me where in the world you are watching from. Smash that like button and subscribe because the tension is only going to escalate from here. The temperature around them seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jae-hyun's hand on his wheelchair tightened, knuckles going white. Accidents happen in any business, Park. I'm sure you understand that better than most. Park laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. Of course, though some might say that a man in your position should focus on protecting what's his rather than acquiring new liabilities. His eyes flicked meaningfully to Lydia. Beautiful things can be so fragile. The threat was unmistakable. Lydia felt her heart rate spike, but she kept her expression neutral. Jae-hyun's response was equally measured, though she could feel the rage radiating off him. I protect what's mine very well, Park. You'd do well to remember that. I'm sure you do. Park pulled out a business card and handed it to Lydia. Mrs. Kong, if you ever need anything, or if you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation, please don't hesitate to call. Seoul can be lonely for outsiders. Lydia took the card because refusing would have caused a scene, but the moment Park walked away, she handed it to Jae-hyun. What was that about? That was Park Tae-min showing me he knows you exist and can get to you if he wants to. Jae-hyun crushed the business card in his fist. He's been trying to absorb my territory for the past year. The wheelchair made him bold. Your presence here just gave him another pressure point. So Uncle Sung was right. Marrying me made you look weak. Marrying you made me look human. There's a difference. Jae-hyun steered them toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. Park is a problem, but he's not stupid. He won't make a move tonight, not in public. But we need to leave soon. I thought we had to stay for the whole event. Plans change. We've been seen, we've made our statement. Staying longer just gives Park more opportunities to posture and threaten. He signaled to one of his men with a subtle gesture. We'll make our excuses and go. But before they could move, a woman's voice called out in English. Jae-hyun, don't tell me you're leaving already. The woman in the red dress from earlier glided over, all elegant movements and practiced charm. She was Korean, stunning, with the kind of beauty that came from excellent genetics and even better plastic surgery. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were calculating as they assessed Lydia. Soo-jin, Jae-hyun said, and Lydia detected something in his voice. History. I wasn't aware you'd returned from Paris. Last week, I heard the most interesting rumor about you getting married, and I simply had to see for myself. Soo-jin extended her hand to Lydia. I'm Lee Soo-jin. Jae-hyun and I are old friends. The way she said friends suggested they'd been much more than that. Lydia shook her hand, noting the firmness of the grip. Lydia Daniels. Well, Lydia Kong now. How modern, keeping your first name. Most women in our circles would have chosen a Korean name. Soo-jin's smile never wavered. And how wonderful that Jae-hyun found someone so different from his usual type. My usual type? Jae-hyun's tone held a warning. Oh, you know what I mean. Someone from the same world, who understands our ways. But I suppose variety is exciting. Soo-jin's gaze drifted back to Lydia. You must find Seoul very overwhelming, coming from America. The language barrier alone must be exhausting. I'm managing, Lydia said evenly. Of course you are. Love conquers all, doesn't it? Soo-jin touched Jae-hyun's shoulder with casual familiarity. We should all have dinner soon. I'm dying to hear how this whirlwind romance happened. 3 months, was it? That's barely enough time to know someone's favorite color, let alone marry them. Some connections run deeper than time, Jae-hyun said, pulling away from her touch. Now if you'll excuse us, Soo-jin, Lydia isn't feeling well. We should go. Oh, I hope it's nothing serious. You're not pregnant already, are you? The question was delivered with a laugh, but the calculation behind it was clear. She was probing, looking for weaknesses in their story. Just tired, Lydia said. It's been a long week. I'm sure it has. Well, do feel better. And Jae-hyun, we really must catch up properly soon. I have some business opportunities one think you'd find very interesting. Soo-jin air-kissed both his cheeks, then walked away, her red dress swirling around her legs. The moment she was gone, Lydia turned to Jae-hyun. Okay, who was that really? Exactly who she said. An old friend. Try again. Jae-hyun sighed. We were engaged. 5 years ago. The marriage would have unified 2 powerful families. But she chose her career in fashion over the marriage and moved to Paris. And now she's back, and you're married to someone else. That must sting. Soo-jin doesn't have feelings that can be hurt. She has ambitions and calculations. If she's being friendly, it's because she wants something. He started moving toward the exit, which is exactly why we're leaving now. The ride back to the penthouse was silent. Lydia stared out the window, processing everything she'd witnessed. The barely veiled threats from Park, the territorial posturing from Soo-jin, the disdain from Uncle Sung. Every person at that gala had been assessing her, looking for ways to use her or destroy her. You handled yourself well tonight, Jae-hyun said as they pulled up to the building. Better than well, actually. You didn't flinch when Park threatened you, and you held your own with Soo-jin. I spent 10 years in corporate finance. I know how to smile while people try to stab me in the back. Lydia waited for the door to open. But this is different, isn't it? In my old life, the worst they could do was get me fired. Here, they can actually kill me. Yes, which is why you need to stay alert. He caught her hand before she could get out of the car. Lydia, I need you to understand something. What Park said tonight wasn't just posturing. He's testing boundaries, seeing how far he can push before I push back. And Soo-jin showing up wasn't a coincidence. Someone told her about our marriage, probably Park, and she's here to gather intelligence. So I'm bait. You're my wife. And in this world, that makes you both my greatest strength and my greatest vulnerability. His grip on her hand tightened slightly. I meant what I said earlier. I won't let anything happen to you. But you need to be smart. Don't go anywhere without security. Don't trust anyone, not even people who seem friendly. And if anything feels wrong, you tell me immediately. The intensity in his eyes made her chest tighten. You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you alive. He released her hand. Get some rest. Tomorrow you start learning Korean and basic self-defense. If you're going to survive in my world, You need to be able to protect yourself. Up in her suite, Lydia kicked off the heels and collapsed onto the bed, still wearing the expensive gown. Her mind was racing, replaying every conversation from the gala. Park's threats, Sujin's calculated friendliness, Uncle Sung's contempt, and underneath it all, Jae-hyun's words. You're both my greatest strength and my greatest vulnerability. She pulled out her phone and stared at Tasha's contact information. She wanted so badly to call her friend, to hear a familiar voice, to pretend for just a few minutes that her life was normal. But it was the middle of the night in Atlanta, and besides, what would she even say? A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in. Hannah entered carrying a tray with tea and what looked like traditional Korean snacks. I thought you might be hungry, ma'am. You barely ate anything at the gala. I wasn't exactly in the mood. Lydia sat up, accepting the tea gratefully. Hannah, can I ask you something? Of course. What happened to Jae-hyun? How did he end up in that wheelchair? Hannah's expression became guarded. That's not my story to tell, ma'am. But you know what happened. Everyone who works for Master Kong knows what happened. It's why we're all so loyal to him. Hannah set the tray down on the side table. 3 years ago, there was an attempt on his life. A bomb in his car. Most people would have died. Master Kong survived, but his legs were badly damaged. The doctors said he'd never walk again. Lydia set down her teacup, processing this information. And the people who tried to kill him? Dead. All of them. Hannah's voice was flat, emotionless. Master Kong doesn't forgive betrayal. The men who planted that bomb were part of his own organization, paid off by a rival family. He made an example of them. An example. Their bodies were found in pieces across Seoul. A message to anyone else who might consider turning against him. Hannah met Lydia's eyes. Master Kong may be in a wheelchair, ma'am, but he's still the most dangerous man in this city. Don't ever forget that. After Hannah left, Lydia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She'd married a man who'd orchestrated brutal murders. A man who ruled through fear and violence. A man who'd somehow decided she was worth saving and protecting, for reasons he still hadn't fully explained. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Welcome to Seoul, Mrs. Kong. I hope you're enjoying your new life. It would be a shame if something happened to cut it short. No signature. No way to trace who sent it. But the message was clear. Someone was watching her. Someone wanted her afraid. Lydia took a screenshot and immediately forwarded it to Jae-hyun. His response came within seconds. Security is already tracing it. Stay in your room. I'm sending additional guards to your floor. She wanted to argue, to say she wasn't some helpless damsel who needed constant protection. But the truth was, she was terrified. This wasn't her world. These weren't her rules. And she was playing a game where the stakes were literally life and death. The next morning, Lydia woke to find Min Jun, Jae-hyun's right-hand man, waiting in her sitting room. He was in his early 40s, built like a tank, with a face that suggested he'd seen and done terrible things without losing sleep over them. Mrs. Kong, he said with a slight bow. Master Kong asked me to escort you to the training room. Training room. For your self-defense lessons. He was very clear that you start today. Lydia wanted to refuse, to say she had better things to do than learn how to fight. But the memory of that text message was still fresh. She followed Min Jun through the penthouse to a room she hadn't seen before, equipped with mats, punching bags, and various weapons mounted on the walls. Jae-hyun was already there, still in his wheelchair, but dressed in athletic wear. Good morning. Is it? Lydia gestured to the weapons. This looks like a torture chamber. It's a training facility. There's a difference. He wheeled himself to the center of the mat. Min Jun is going to teach you basic self-defense. How to break holds, where to strike to incapacitate an attacker, how to use everyday objects as weapons. And what are you going to do? Watch. And make sure you take this seriously. His expression was stern. The text you received last night came from a burner phone purchased in Itaewon. We tracked the seller, but it's a dead end. Whoever sent it knows how to cover their tracks, which means they're professional. The fear from last night came rushing back. Park, possibly, or someone working for him, or Sujin gathering information, or any of the dozen other people who see you as a weakness to exploit. Jae-hyun's voice was hard. This is your reality now, Lydia. People want to hurt you to hurt me. So you're going to learn how to protect yourself. The next 3 hours were brutal. Min Jun didn't go easy on her, teaching her how to break a wrist grip, how to gouge eyes, where to strike the throat for maximum damage. By the time they finished, Lydia was drenched in sweat, and every muscle ached. You did well, Min Jun said, which she suspected was high praise from him. Same time tomorrow. After showering and changing, Lydia found Hannah waiting with her Korean language materials. We'll start with basics. Greetings, essential phrases, numbers. Master Kong wants you conversational within 3 months. That's impossible. You'd be surprised what you can accomplish when your life depends on it. Hannah opened the first textbook. Now, repeat after me. The days began to blur together. Mornings were self-defense training with Min Jun, where she learned to fight dirty and survive. Afternoons were Korean lessons with Hannah, struggling to wrap her tongue around unfamiliar sounds. Evenings were dinner with Jae-hyun, where they discussed business and strategy like an actual married couple. She saw different sides of him during those dinners. His sharp intelligence when analyzing financial reports. His dark humor when recounting meetings with rivals. The way his eyes softened slightly when she made him laugh with a badly pronounced Korean phrase. He was still dangerous, still ruthless, but he was also more human than she'd expected. 2 weeks into her new life, Lydia was in the penthouse library researching Korean business customs when she overheard voices from Jae-hyun's study. The door was slightly ajar, and though she knew she shouldn't eavesdrop, she couldn't help herself. She's a liability, Jae-hyun. Uncle Sung's voice, sharp with disapproval. The men are talking. They say you're distracted by a foreign woman. That you've gone soft. The men can say whatever they want. Their opinions don't run this organization. But their loyalty does. And right now, that loyalty is wavering. Park is making moves, taking territory we can't afford to lose. We need to respond with strength, not throw galas and play house with your American wife. My wife is none of your concern. Everything about this family is my concern. Your father trusted me to guide you, and I'm telling you this marriage is a mistake. Send her back to America. Find a proper Korean woman from a connected family. Solidify our alliances instead of weakening them. A pause. Then Jae-hyun's voice, cold as ice. My father is dead, Uncle Sung, and I run this family now, not you. Lydia stays. That's not up for discussion. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment. I'm making strategic decisions that you're too old and traditional to understand. Now get out of my study before I forget how much I once respected you. Footsteps approached the door. Lydia quickly retreated back into the library, her heart pounding. She'd just heard Jae-hyun defend her, refused to send her away despite pressure from his inner circle. But why? What was she to him beyond a convenient cover story? That night, unable to sleep, Lydia wandered the penthouse. She found herself in a hallway she hadn't explored before, lined with photographs. The Kang family history, she realized. Jae-hyun's grandfather, stern and imposing in traditional Korean dress. His father, equally intimidating in a Western suit. And then Jae-hyun himself at various ages. One photo caught her attention. Jae-hyun, maybe 10 years ago, standing tall and healthy, arm around a beautiful Korean woman. They both looked happy, genuinely happy, in a way she'd never seen him look in person. That was taken in Jeju. Jae-hyun's voice came from behind her. She spun around to find him wheeling himself down the hallway. 6 months before the bombing. Who is she? Her name was Min Seo. We were together for 3 years. His gaze fixed on the photograph. She was in the car with me when the bomb went off. Lydia's chest tightened. She died. Instantly. The bomb was meant for me, but she paid the price. His jaw clenched. I survived with shattered legs and a spine the doctors said would never support me again. She didn't survive at all. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't change what happened. He wheeled closer to the photograph. You asked me once why I saved you specifically. Why I married you instead of just warning you and sending you home. You said you had your reasons. I did. I do. He turned to face her fully. You remind me of her. Not in appearance, but in spirit. Min Seo was fierce, independent, refused to be intimidated by my world. She saw past the violence and the power to who I actually was. And when I saw you in that security footage, drugged and terrified but still fighting, still demanding answers even when you were barely conscious, I saw that same strength. Lydia didn't know what to say. This was the most vulnerable she'd ever seen him, the most honest. I couldn't save Min Seo, Jae-hyun continued. I was unconscious when she died, helpless in a hospital bed while they scraped what was left of her off the pavement. But I could save you. And maybe that makes me selfish, using you to ease my own guilt. But I won't apologize for it. Is that all I am to you? A replacement for someone you lost? No. His answer was immediate and firm. Min Seo is gone. I mourned her. I avenged her, and I moved forward. You're not her replacement, Lydia. You're something entirely different. Something I didn't expect. What does that mean? Instead of answering, he reached for her hand. Come with me. There's something you need to see. He led her to a part of the penthouse she'd never entered, a private wing that required a fingerprint scan to access. Inside was a gym, state-of-the-art equipment gleaming under bright lights. And in the center, a set of parallel bars. Jae-hyun wheeled himself to the bars and locked his wheelchair. Then, with visible effort, he gripped the bars and slowly, painfully, pulled himself up to standing. His legs trembled with the strain, muscles clearly atrophied from disuse, but he was standing, supporting his own weight. Lydia's breath caught. You can walk. Not well, not for long, but more than anyone knows. He took one shaky step forward, then another, his knuckles white from gripping the bars. I've been doing physical therapy in secret for 2 years. The doctors said I'd never walk again, and I let everyone believe them. My enemies, my allies, even most of my own men. Why hide it? Because a man in a wheelchair is underestimated. People speak freely around me, thinking I'm weak. They make moves they wouldn't make if they thought I was capable of standing toe-to-toe with them. He took another step, sweat beading on his forehead. Park has been emboldened because he thinks I'm broken. Sujin came back from Paris because she thinks she can manipulate a crippled man desperate for companionship. Uncle Sung questions my leadership because he sees the wheelchair as proof I'm not fit to run the family. But you're regaining strength. You're not as disabled as they think. Exactly. Jae-hyun reached the end of the bars and slowly lowered himself back into the wheelchair, breathing hard. I've been waiting for the right moment to reveal it. To stand up at a critical meeting or confrontation and watch the shock on their faces. But that moment hasn't come yet. Lydia processed this revelation, her mind racing. Does anyone else know? Min-jun, my physical therapist, who's been well compensated for his silence. And now you. He looked at her intently. I'm trusting you with this, Lydia. With a secret that could get me killed if it reaches the wrong ears. Why? Why tell me it all? Because I need you to understand that nothing about our marriage is what it seems. Not to the outside world. Not even to most of my organization. Everyone sees a vulnerable man who made an emotional decision to marry a foreign woman. But the truth is more complicated. Then tell me the truth. The real truth. Not the version you tell Uncle Sung or Park or anyone else. Lydia moved closer to his wheelchair. Why did you really marry me, Jae-hyun? He was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, because I've been planning a consolidation of power for 3 years. Since the bombing that killed Min Seo and nearly killed me. I've been patient, methodical, letting my enemies think I'm weak while I gather resources and intelligence. Your audit of Chun Holdings, your exposure of the Yamaguchi-gumi's money laundering, it created an opportunity. An opportunity for what? To destabilize Park. Chun Holdings was one of his major cash flows. Your audit cost him 40 million and exposed him to law enforcement scrutiny. He blamed the Yakuza for the sloppy bookkeeping. They blamed him for hiring incompetent accountants. The relationship fractured. Jae-hyun's eyes glinted with something dangerous. And when they targeted you for revenge, I saw a chance to insert myself into the conflict. To save you, marry you, and use your skills to trace more of Park's financial networks. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. You've been planning this from the beginning. The marriage wasn't just about protecting me. It was about using me against Park. Yes and no. The protection is real, Lydia. The threat to your life is real. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a strategic element to my decision. He didn't look away from her accusation. You're an expert in financial forensics. You can find money trails that my people can't. You can analyze shell corporations and offshore accounts. With your help, I can dismantle Park's entire financial empire. So I'm not your wife. I'm your weapon. You're both. And if that makes me manipulative, so be it. I've never pretended to be a good man. His voice hardened. But here's what's also true. I could have used you and thrown you away when I was done. I could have kept you in the dark, just had my men feed you information to analyze without telling you why. Instead, I'm being honest. I'm giving you a choice. What choice? Help me destroy Park Tae-min. Use your skills to trace his money, expose his operations, and bring down his entire organization. In exchange, when it's over, I'll give you anything you want. Money, a new identity, safe passage back to America, anything. He leaned forward in his wheelchair. Or refuse. Go back to your suite, play the dutiful wife, and after 6 months, I'll honor our original agreement and let you go. No questions, no consequences. Lydia's mind reeled. She should be furious. She should feel betrayed and used. And part of her did. But another part, the part that had spent 10 years clawing her way up through corporate finance, the part that had survived being drugged and targeted by the Yakuza, that part was intrigued. If I help you, what happens to Park? He loses everything. His money, his territory, his power, his life. In that order, Jae-hyun's voice was cold and certain. He threatened you at the gala. He sent men to intimidate you. He sees you as a weakness to exploit. I'm offering you the chance to be his destruction instead. The idea was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. And what about me? What happens when Park realizes I'm the one unraveling his finances? He'll come after you. Which is why you've been learning self-defense and why you'll have protection every moment of every day. But Lydia, you need to understand something. Jae-hyun's gaze was intense. If you agree to this, you're not just playing a role anymore. You're becoming part of this world for real. There's no going back from that. You can't unknow what you'll learn or undo what you'll help accomplish. You're asking me to help you commit murder. I'm asking you to help me wage war. Park and I have been circling each other for years. This was always going to end in blood. The only question is whose. Lydia walked to the windows overlooking Seoul, the city lights spreading out like stars. 2 weeks ago, she'd been a normal woman with a normal life. Now she was standing in a crime lord's secret gym, being offered the chance to help orchestrate the downfall of another criminal empire. The smart thing would be to refuse. To stay safe, play it small, survive the 6 months and go home. But when had she ever chosen safe over smart? She turned back to face Jae-hyun. If I do this, I want something more than just safe passage home. Name it. I want the truth. About everything. No more secrets, no more manipulation. If we're partners in this, then we're actual partners. Equal. She crossed her arms. And when this is over, when Park is destroyed and I've played my part, you help me destroy the Yamaguchi-gumi too. The ones who tried to traffic me in the first place. A slow smile spread across Jae-hyun's face, the first genuine one she'd seen. Done. Partners. He extended his hand. Lydia stared at it for a long moment, knowing that shaking it would change everything. Then she reached out and gripped it firmly. Partners. The next morning, Lydia found herself in Jae-hyun's study with Min-jun and 2 other men she hadn't met before. One was young, maybe late 20s, with glasses and the pale complexion of someone who spent too much time in front of screens. The other was older, grizzled, with scars on his hands and the watchful eyes of a soldier. Lydia, this is Kim Hyun-woo, our technology specialist, and Choi Dae-young, head of our intelligence operations. Jae-hyun introduced them. Gentlemen, my wife will be joining our inner circle. She'll be leading the financial investigation into Park's operations. The surprise on their faces was unmistakable, but both men bowed respectfully. Mrs. Kong, they said in unison. Just Lydia is fine. Jae-hyun gestured to the table where documents and laptops were spread out. Show her what we have so far. Hyun-woo pulled up files on a large monitor mounted on the wall. Park Tae-min controls approximately 60% of the illegal import-export operations in Seoul. Weapons, drugs, luxury goods, antiquities. He moves product through legitimate shipping companies using falsified manifests and bribed customs officials. His cash flow is approximately $200 million annually, Dae-young added. But he's bleeding money. The loss of Chun Holdings was significant, but he's also overextended. He's been trying to expand into Busan and Incheon simultaneously, which requires substantial capital. Lydia studied the financial documents, her trained eye immediately catching discrepancies. These numbers don't add up. He's reporting $200 million in revenue, but his operational expenses are only listed at $40 million? That's impossible. Even with illegal operations, his overhead should be much higher. That's what we thought, Jae-hyun said. Which means he's hiding money somewhere. Or someone's stealing from him. Lydia pulled up a spreadsheet, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she created a new analysis. Look at these payment patterns. Every third Thursday, there's a withdrawal of exactly $1.2 million from his main account. It's labeled as operational expenses, but it's too regular, too precise. Real operational expenses fluctuate. Hyun-woo leaned closer to the screen. I never noticed that pattern. Because you're looking at individual transactions. You need to see the bigger picture. Lydia highlighted several more entries. And here, these offshore transfers to the Caymans. The amounts vary, but they're always multiples of 50,000. That's not random. That's someone following a formula. Min-jun crossed his arms, looking at her with new respect. Can you trace where the money goes? With time and access to more detailed records, yes. But I'll need login credentials for his banking systems, transaction histories, communication records between him and his financial advisors. Lydia turned to Jae-hyun. How much access can you get me? Hyun-woo can get you anything digital within 48 hours. The question is, can you analyze it without Park realizing someone's digging into his finances? If I'm careful, yes. I'll need to work in layers, pulling small amounts of data that won't trigger alerts. It'll take longer, but it's safer. She was already mentally mapping out her approach, the familiar thrill of a complex financial puzzle overriding her fear. Give me 2 weeks, and I'll have a complete picture of where every dollar goes. Jae-hyun nodded to Hyun-woo. Get her everything she needs. Secure terminal, encrypted connection, whatever she asks for. Over the following days, Lydia immersed herself in Park's financial empire. Hyun-woo set up a workspace in a secure room off Jae-hyun's study, with multiple monitors and direct access to servers that Lydia suspected were very illegal. She worked 12, 14-hour days, tracing money through shell corporations and offshore accounts, building a map of Park's entire operation. And slowly, a pattern emerged. Park wasn't just bleeding money from the Chun Holdings disaster. Someone in his organization was systematically embezzling from him, siphoning funds through carefully disguised transfers. But more importantly, Lydia discovered something else. He's laundering money for the Yamaguchi-gumi, she told Jae-hyun one evening, pulling up her findings. Not just the one operation I audited. He has at least 4 other shell companies processing their funds. That's why he can't afford to lose the Yakuza's business. They're his biggest client. Jae-hyun studied the data, his expression thoughtful. And if we expose this, the Yakuza will think he's incompetent for letting his operations get compromised. They'll either drop him as a partner or worse. They'll assume he's cooperating with authorities and eliminate him themselves. Lydia felt a dark satisfaction at the thought. Either way, he loses their protection and their money. You're enjoying this, Jae-hyun observed. I'm good at this. And yes, watching a man who threatened me lose everything is satisfying. She met his gaze. Does that make me a terrible person? It makes you someone who understands how this world works. Strength is the only currency that matters, and right now, you're proving you have it. But that night, as Lydia was leaving the secure room, she overheard voices again. Uncle Sung and another man she didn't recognize, speaking Korean in urgent tones. She caught her name, Lydia, and Jae-hyun's name, then a word she'd learned in her language lessons. Wyam. Danger. The next morning during her self-defense training, she asked Minjun about it. What does it mean when someone says another person is Wyam? Minjun's expression became guarded. It means dangerous. Risky. Why do you ask? I heard Uncle Sung use that word. About me. Uncle Sung thinks many things. Most of them are none of your concern. But Minjun's tone suggested there was more he wasn't saying. Focus on your training. He taught her something new that day. How to handle a knife, how to strike quickly and disappear into a crowd. If someone comes at you, you don't fight fair, he said. You do whatever it takes to survive and get away. Honor means nothing if you're dead. The intensity of the lesson unsettled her. Has something changed? Is there a new threat? There's always a threat, Mrs. Kong. The only question is when it will manifest. That evening, Jae-hyun asked her to join him for dinner. Not in the formal dining room, but in his private quarters, a space she'd never been invited to before. It was surprisingly simple compared to the rest of the penthouse. Comfortable furniture, bookshelves lined with well-worn volumes, photographs of his family. Uncle Sung came to see me today, Jae-hyun said as they ate. He's heard rumors that you've been working on something related to Park's finances. He wants to know what you found. Did you tell him? No, because what you're doing is between us. But he's suspicious, and he's not the only one. Some of my men are questioning why my wife spends so much time in a secure room with our technology specialist. Lydia set down her chopsticks, her appetite vanishing. They think I'm a spy. They think you're a liability. An outsider who I've given too much access to sensitive information. Jae-hyun's voice was calm, but she could see the tension in his jaw. There's been talk of removing you. Quietly. An accident that would free me to make a more advantageous marriage. Her blood ran cold. Are you telling me your own men want to kill me? I'm telling you that loyalty in this world is conditional. And right now, some people see you as a threat rather than an asset. He reached across the table and took her hand. But I won't let that happen. You're under my protection, and anyone who moves against you moves against me. How reassuring, Lydia said bitterly. I'm working my ass off to help you destroy Park, and your own organization wants me dead. Welcome to my world. Trust is rare, and betrayal is common. It's why I keep my inner circle so small. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, a surprisingly gentle gesture. But you need to be more careful. No more late night wandering through the penthouse. Stay in monitored areas where security can see you. And if anyone approaches you with questions about what you're working on, you direct them to me. This is insane. I can't live like this, constantly watching my back, even in my own home. This isn't your home, Lydia. It's a battlefield, and you're a soldier now. The sooner you accept that, the better chance you have of surviving. The words stung because they were true. She'd agreed to this partnership, agreed to help wage war against Park. But she hadn't fully considered what that would mean. The danger wouldn't just come from external enemies. It would come from within, from people who saw her as an interloper who'd seduce their leader into making stupid decisions. If you're wondering whether Lydia can survive in this deadly world where even allies might become enemies, drop a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe because things are about to get even more dangerous. 2 days later, everything changed. Lydia was in the secure room analyzing another set of financial records when Hyunwoo burst in. his face pale. We have a problem. Park knows someone's been accessing his systems. Lydia's heart stuttered. How? I don't know. I was careful. I covered our tracks, but somehow his security team detected the intrusion. They've locked down all their systems, and they're tracing the access points. Hyunwoo's fingers flew across his keyboard. I'm trying to erase our footprints, but if they're good enough, they might be able to trace it back here. What does that mean? It means Park will know Jae-hyun has been investigating his finances, which means he'll know the marriage isn't just about love. You're not just a wife, you're part of an operation against him. The implications crashed over her like a wave. If Park knew she was actively working against him, she wouldn't just be a potential weakness to exploit. She'd be an active enemy to eliminate. Get Jae-hyun, Lydia said, forcing her voice to stay steady. Now. Within minutes, Jae-hyun was in the room with Min-jun and Dae-young. Hyun-woo explained the situation, his hands still working frantically to cover their digital trail. How long before they trace it? Jae-hyun asked, his voice deadly calm. Hours, maybe less if they have someone really good. I've scrambled the route through multiple servers, but determined enough hackers can follow it back. Hyun-woo looked genuinely scared. I'm sorry, sir. I thought I was more careful. It's not your fault. Park's been paranoid since the Chun Holdings audit. He probably upgraded his entire security infrastructure. Jae-hyun turned to Dae-young. What's our security status? All perimeters are locked down. I've doubled the guards and activated the emergency protocols. But if Park decides to move against us tonight, we'll have maybe 20 minutes warning before they breach the building. That's not enough time. Min-jun's hand moved to his weapon. We should relocate Mrs. Kong to the safe house immediately. No. Jae-hyun's voice was firm. Moving her now, in the middle of the night, will look like panic. It'll confirm we have something to hide. We stay put and we act like nothing's wrong. That's insane, Lydia protested. If they're coming, then we'll be ready. But running makes us look guilty and weak. We stand our ground. He turned to her, his dark eyes intense. Do you trust me? It was a loaded question. Did she trust a man who'd manipulated her into marriage, who'd admitted to using her as a weapon, who ran a criminal empire built on violence and fear? The smart answer was no. But looking at him now, seeing the absolute certainty in his expression, she found herself nodding. Yes. Good. Then stay calm and follow my lead. If Park calls, if he shows up, you know nothing. You're my wife who spends her days learning Korean and going to charity lunches. The financial analysis? You were just curious about the family business, trying to understand your new world. Nothing more. Will he believe that? He'll want to. Because the alternative is admitting I've outmaneuvered him, and Park's ego won't allow that. Jae-hyun wheeled himself toward the door. Everyone to your positions. Lydia, go to your suite and act normal. Read a book, take a bath, whatever you usually do in the evening. And if anyone asks, you've been with me all night. The lie was already forming, the alibi clicking into place. Lydia went to her suite as instructed, but she couldn't focus on anything. She paced the room, jumping at every sound, expecting armed men to burst through the door at any moment. An hour passed, then two. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jae-hyun. Park just called. He suspects something but has no proof. Wants to meet tomorrow to discuss mutual concerns. I accepted. Stay in your room tonight. Lydia's hands shook as she typed back. Are we safe? For now, get some sleep. Tomorrow will be difficult. Sleep was impossible, but Lydia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through scenarios. Park knew someone had been digging into his finances. He suspected Jae-hyun. Tomorrow's meeting would be a confrontation, a test to see who blinked first. And she was right in the middle of it. The next day, Jae-hyun insisted she accompany him to the meeting with Park. You're my wife. Your presence sends a message that we have nothing to hide. Or it puts a target on my back. The target's already there, Lydia. Now we're just making it harder for him to take the shot. He was dressed impeccably as always, every inch the powerful businessman. Stay close to me. Don't speak unless directly addressed. And remember, you're just a woman who fell in love with the wrong man. Naive and harmless. The meeting was at a neutral location, an upscale restaurant in Gangnam that Park apparently owned. They arrived with a full security detail, Min-jun and 4 other men who positioned themselves strategically around the private dining room. Park was already there, looking smug and dangerous in an expensive suit. Soo-jin sat beside him, which was a surprise. Her presence meant this was more than just a business meeting. This was theater. Jae-hyun, Mrs. Kong, how lovely to see you both. Park's smile was predatory. Please sit. They took their seats across from Park and Soo-jin. Lydia kept her expression neutral, her hands folded in her lap like a dutiful wife with no understanding of what was really happening. I appreciate you meeting with me on such short notice, Park began. I've been experiencing some unusual activity in my business operations lately. Security breaches, suspicious access to sensitive systems. Very concerning. I'm sure it is, Jae-hyun replied smoothly. Though I'm not sure why you'd want to discuss your security issues with me. Because the digital fingerprints suggest the intrusion came from someone with significant resources and technical expertise. Someone like you. Park's eyes glittered with malice. Tell me, Jae-hyun, have you been keeping tabs on my operations? Why would I? Your business is your own. Unless you're suggesting I have reason to be interested in your affairs. The verbal sparring was subtle but vicious. Park was probing, looking for any crack in Jae-hyun's facade. Meanwhile, Soo-jin's gaze kept drifting to Lydia, assessing, calculating. Mrs. Kong, Soo-jin said suddenly, her voice sweet as poison. I heard you've been spending a lot of time in your husband's offices lately, learning about the family business. Lydia's pulse spiked, but she kept her voice casual. I've been trying to understand Jae-hyun's work, yes. It's a lot more complicated than the corporate finance I'm used to. I'm sure it is. And has he been teaching you about his various operations? His partnerships, his competitors? The question seemed innocent, but the intent was clear. She was fishing for information. He's been very patient with me, though I'm afraid most of it goes over my head. Numbers I understand. The politics and history? That's much harder. Lydia smiled self-deprecatingly. I'm still learning basic Korean. Understanding international business strategy is a bit beyond me right now. It was the perfect response. Humble, slightly ditzy, exactly what they'd expect from a foreign woman out of her depth. Soo-jin's expression flickered with something that might have been disappointment. Park leaned forward, his attention fully on Jae-hyun now. Here's what I think happened. I think someone got curious about my operations after the Chun Holdings disaster. I think that someone used sophisticated hacking techniques to access my financial records. And I think that someone is sitting across from me right now, pretending to be concerned about my security. That's quite an accusation, Jae-hyun said calmly. Do you have proof? Not yet, but I will. And when I do, there will be consequences. Park's smile was cold. You see, Jae-hyun, I've been patient with you. I've respected your family name, made allowances for your condition. But my patience has limits. As does mine. Jae-hyun's voice dropped, taking on an edge that made the temperature in the room plummet. You've been taking liberties, Park. Encroaching on territories that aren't yours, making threats against people under my protection. That stops now. Or what? You'll will yourself over here and intimidate me. Park laughed, the sound harsh. You're not the man your father was. Everyone knows it. The wheelchair proved it. The insult hung in the air. Lydia saw Min-jun tense, his hand moving toward his weapon. But Jae-hyun remained perfectly still, his expression unchanged. My father was a great man, Jae-hyun said softly. But he made mistakes. He trusted the wrong people, underestimated his enemies. I won't make those same errors. Big words from a man who can't even stand. What happened next occurred so fast that Lydia almost missed it. Jae-hyun's hands moved to the arms of his wheelchair, and with a fluid motion that spoke of countless hours of practice, he pushed himself up to standing. Not shakily, not with the trembling weakness he'd shown her in his private gym, but smoothly, powerfully, like a man who'd never been injured at all. Park's face went white. Soo-jin gasped. Even Min-jun looked shocked. Jae-hyun stood there, tall and imposing, his eyes locked on Park with an intensity that could cut glass. You want to know who's been investigating your operations? It was me. You want to know why? Because you threatened my wife, and nobody threatens what's mine. He took a step forward, completely steady now. Park actually flinched. I let everyone think I was broken because it made them careless. It made them reveal their true intentions, their hidden ambitions. And you, Park, you showed me exactly how far you're willing to go. Another step, and now Jae-hyun was looming over the table. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to my wife for your threats. You're going to back off from my territories. And you're going to pray that I'm feeling merciful enough not to destroy everything you've built. Park's hand moved toward his jacket, but Min-jun was faster, his gun suddenly visible and aimed directly at Park's head. The other guards in the room tensed, weapons appearing on both sides, a powder keg waiting for a spark. I wouldn't, Min-jun said calmly. The standoff lasted an eternity compressed into seconds. Then Park slowly raised his hands, a forced smile twisting his lips. This changes nothing, Jae-hyun. So you can walk. Congratulations. But you're still outnumbered, still vulnerable. Am I? Jae-hyun's voice was ice. Because from where I'm standing, you're the one who just lost his biggest advantage. You thought I was weak. You built your entire strategy around my perceived disability. And now that foundation has crumbled beneath you. He turned to Soo-jin, who was staring at him with a mixture of shock and something that looked like regret. Did you know? When you came back from Paris, did you know what he was planning? Sujin's silence was answer enough. I thought so. Jae-hyun's expression hardened. You always did choose the winning side, Sujin. I wonder if you chose correctly this time. He lowered himself back into the wheelchair with the same fluid grace, making it clear the movement was a choice, not a necessity. We're leaving. And Park, if anything happens to my wife, if she so much as gets a threatening text message, I will burn your entire empire to ash and scatter it across the Han River. Are we clear? Park's jaw clenched, but he managed a tight nod. The ride back to the penthouse was silent. Lydia's mind was reeling from what she'd witnessed. Jae-hyun could walk. Really walk. Not just the shaky steps she'd seen in his private gym. He'd been playing a role for 3 years, letting everyone underestimate him while he built his strength and planned his moves. That was your plan all along, she said finally, revealing you could walk. You were waiting for the right moment. Park forced my hand by detecting the security breach. I had to shift the narrative, make him react to me instead of the other way around. Jae-hyun's hands were steady on his lap, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. It's a risk. Now everyone knows I'm not as vulnerable as they thought, but it also sends a message. I'm not someone to be underestimated or threatened. What happens now? Now? War. His voice was matter of fact. Park won't back down. His pride won't allow it. And now that he knows we've been investigating his finances, he'll accelerate his plans. We have maybe 48 hours before he makes his move. Lydia's chest tightened with fear, but underneath it was something else. Anticipation. She'd spent weeks building a financial map of Park's empire. Now she'd get to see it used. I found something else, she said quietly. In the data. Something I didn't tell you yet because I wanted to be sure. Jae-hyun turned to look at her fully. What? Park's been embezzling from the Yamaguchi-gumi. Not directly, but through inflated service fees and phantom expenses. He's skimming approximately 15% of everything he launders for them. She pulled out her phone, showing him the spreadsheet she'd created. It's clever, buried under legitimate costs. But it's there. How much total? Over the past 2 years? Approximately $30 million. Lydia met his eyes. If the Yakuza finds out, they'll kill him themselves. We wouldn't even have to get our hands dirty. A slow smile spread across Jae-hyun's face. You're more ruthless than I gave you credit for. I learned from the best. She felt a dark satisfaction. So what do we do with this information? We give it to them. Anonymously. Let the Yamaguchi-gumi deal with their embezzling partner. Jae-hyun's eyes gleamed with cold calculation. By the time they're done with him, there won't be enough left for us to worry about. Back at the penthouse, Jae-hyun called an emergency meeting with his inner circle. Uncle Sung, Min-jun, Dae-young, Hyun-woo, and now Lydia. The old man's disapproval of her presence was palpable, but he said nothing. Park knows we've been investigating him. Jae-hyun began, standing now, no longer bothering with the wheelchair charade in front of his closest advisors. He'll retaliate within days, possibly hours. We need to be prepared for a full assault. What about the police? Uncle Sung asked. Park has connections in law enforcement. He could use them against us. So do we. And besides, what we're planning won't involve the police. Jae-hyun nodded to Lydia. Show them. Lydia pulled up her analysis on the large monitor, walking them through Park's financial network, the embezzlement, the Yakuza connection. With each revelation, the respect in the room for her grew. Even Uncle Sung looked grudgingly impressed. If we leak this to the Yamaguchi-gumi, they'll handle Park for us, she concluded. But we need to time it carefully. Too soon, and Park might convince them it's fabricated. Too late, and he might strike first. We leak it tonight, Jae-hyun decided. Hyun-woo, can you make it look like it came from inside Park's own organization? Someone with a grudge, maybe someone he's cheated? Easily. I'll make it look like one of his accountants got nervous and decided to cover their own ass by exposing him. Do it. And Dae-young, I want full surveillance on Park's movements. Everyone he meets, everywhere he goes. If he so much as sneezes wrong, I want to know about it. The meeting continued for another hour, strategies and contingencies being mapped out. Lydia contributed where she could, her financial expertise proving invaluable as they planned how to dismantle Park's empire piece by piece. When everyone finally left, Jae-hyun poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to Lydia. To partnership. She clinked her glass against his. To not getting killed in the next 48 hours. Optimistic. I like it. He drank, then studied her thoughtfully. You know there's no going back after this, right? Once we set this in motion, once the Yakuza moves against Park, you'll be part of it. Complicit in everything that happens. I know. And she did. The woman who'd boarded a plane to Seoul 3 weeks ago wouldn't recognize who she'd become. But that woman would also be dead or trafficked by now. This version of herself, the one who could analyze criminal finances and plot the downfall of dangerous men, this version was a survivor. No regrets. Jaehyun asked. Lydia thought about her life in Atlanta, her small apartment, her quiet job, her safe routine. She thought about Tasha and her mother and everything normal she'd left behind. Then she thought about the rush of solving the financial puzzle, the satisfaction of watching Park's face when Jaehyun stood up, the feeling of being truly seen and valued for her skills rather than just tolerated. Ask me again when this is over. That night, Lydia couldn't sleep. She stood at her window watching Seoul's lights, wondering if Park was out there somewhere planning his revenge. Wondering if the Yakuza had received Hyunwoo's carefully crafted leak yet. Wondering if she'd live long enough to regret her choices. A soft knock at her door. Jaehyun, still dressed despite the late hour. Can't sleep either? She asked. Never could, the night before a battle. He wheeled himself into her sitting room uninvited, but she didn't mind. I wanted to make sure you understood what's coming. It's going to get violent, Lydia. People are going to die. Possibly people you've met. People who've been kind to you. I understand. Do you? Because understanding intellectually and experiencing it emotionally are very different things. His dark eyes searched her face. When you see what men like me are capable of, when you witness the brutality up close, you might not like what you see. Are you trying to scare me away? Because it's a bit late for that. I'm trying to prepare you. There's a difference. He reached for her hand, his fingers warm against hers. You've been brave and smart and more adaptable than I could have hoped. But bravery has limits. And I need to know that when those limits are tested, you won't break. Lydia squeezed his hand. I'm stronger than you think. I know you are. It's why I chose you. The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. But strength alone isn't always enough in this world. Then it's good I have you watching my back. Something shifted in his expression, became almost vulnerable. What if I fail? What if despite everything, I can't keep you safe? It was the first time she'd heard genuine fear in his voice, the first crack in his carefully maintained armor. Lydia knelt beside his wheelchair, bringing herself to eye level with him. Then we fail together. But I don't think you will. Because you're the most calculating, ruthless, brilliant man I've ever met. And Park doesn't stand a chance against us. The kiss happened without conscious decision, both of them moving at the same moment. His hand cupped the back of her neck, pulling her closer, and she responded with an intensity that surprised them both. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the air between them had fundamentally changed. That was unprofessional, Jaehyun said, though he didn't let go of her. We're married. I think professional went out the window weeks ago. Lydia smiled, feeling lighter despite everything. Besides, if we're going to war together, we might as well be honest about what this is becoming. And what is it becoming? Something real. Something neither of us planned. She stood, pulling him up with her. Now get out of my room before we do something we'll definitely regret in the morning. He laughed, the sound genuine and warm. Yes, ma'am. But at the door he paused. Lydia, thank you. For choosing to stay. For choosing this partnership. For choosing me. After he left, Lydia touched her lips, still feeling the ghost of that kiss. Tomorrow, the Yakuza would learn about Park's betrayal. Tomorrow, everything would explode into violence and chaos. Tomorrow, she might die. But tonight, she'd kissed a dangerous man in a wheelchair and felt more alive than she'd ever felt in her safe, ordinary life. And whatever came next, she'd face it standing beside him. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her heart stopped, remembering the last threatening message. But this one was different. The dragon wakes. The serpent falls. Watch the sunrise, Mrs. Kong. Everything changes tomorrow. She forwarded it to Jaehyun immediately. His response came seconds later. It started. The Yakuza received our information. Park's time is running out. Stay alert. Stay safe. This is just the beginning. Lydia walked back to the window, watching the city lights blur through sudden tears. Not tears of fear or regret, but of anticipation. She'd come to Seoul as nobody, a small fish in a very big pond. Tomorrow, she'd become something else entirely. And God help anyone who underestimated the black woman who'd married into the Korean underworld. If you want to see how Lydia and Jaehyun survive what's coming, if you want to witness Park's downfall and discover the secrets still hidden in the shadows, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me what you think happens next. And smash that like button, because part 2 is going to blow your mind. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when the Yakuza comes for Park, when Sujin reveals her true allegiance, and when Lydia discovers the one secret Jaehyun has been keeping from her all along. See you in part 2.